Hi, I'm John from WorkshopAddict.com. I got this Ridgid R4512 10-inch table saw. They call it a hybrid saw. About 10 to 11 months ago, and I did a review of it. Kind of walked everybody through it after I had it for about a month and a half or so, show them the different features and how it worked and what I thought of it. I thought it would be pertinent to go back over this table saw again, 10 months later, tell you what I found out, what changes and modifications I've made to it, and I figure having a table saw in use for a long time, it's kind of a valuable review for people. I also wanted to show, I did, and I'll move the camera for it, but there's a folding outfeed table that I made for this table saw. The way this table saw is set up, it can make attaching this table pretty tricky, so at least I hadn't seen anything online showing how to attach something to this, so I went ahead and came up with my own little idea, and it works out pretty good. I borrowed some of the ideas, actually probably half of it or so, from Laney over at Simple Design of Ocala. If you go check his YouTube page out, he's got about a 5-part video series of how to make a folding table saw, folding outfeed table. The only difference is how to attach this to this table. So we'll go over that in a second. But like I said, I've had this table saw for about 11 months now, and a couple of the things I've done real simply is down here you'll see there is a place for the fence storage. Well, I never store my fence on the side of the table, and this unit comes as 110 volt, and in the instructions it shows how to switch it to a 220. Super simple. If you've got 220 in your shop, it's a great change to make. I didn't have 220 at the time, but we installed it, and so what I did is I actually took, instead of that, the cable, the cord it comes with for plugging into the wall is really rigid. It's not very good, not very flexible. I got a flexible cord, and I'm able to run this about 16 feet. So, and then I wrap the rest of it around where the fence should be stored at. So it runs really smooth at 220. I don't know about 110 if you're gonna break trip breakers or not, because I've been on 220 since I got it. Love that. Also, I went ahead and put the Lee Craft zero clearance insert plate in that I use most of the time. I also have the dado stack set, and works really good. Snaps right into place, and it's an awesome little insert plate. You can make your own. I just didn't have time at the moment, so I went ahead and bought one. And I also made a miter sled. I'll show you that in a second. So let me move the camera, and I'm going to show you the outfeed table. Alright, the first thing I want to show you about this outfeed table is how it connects to the table saw. As I said, it can be a little tricky attaching it because of this rail and the table. The fence rides on this rail, and that's where it clamps. So you need to have enough room for this clamp to open up and be taken off and still be able to clamp down. So what I did was pop this little cap off the back here, and in this cap, this is how this rail attaches to the table saw. There's little holes back here and bolts on, but they also have a little T-track right here, and this T-track runs the full length. And the reason why it's there is this rail is actually in 2 parts. There's a little piece that spans the 2 pieces, and it floats right here in this T-track. Once you tighten it down, the 2 pieces of rail are together. So I went ahead and utilized this T-track by running some 6-inch T-bolts. That's what I had, so that's what I used. I ran those through. I think I have 6 or 8 of them underneath there, and what I have is a 1x4 piece of hard maple. This isn't the best looking board because I had to make some modifications to it as I was going along. A few things I hadn't thought about. So this is actually cut out right here, so this trim piece can not butt up against it when it's closed. So if you use these T-track and T-bolts, you can get this whole workpiece away from the table. Now, I don't know if you can see it or not, but to raise this table up, I put a piece of oak, and I don't remember the dimensions of that. I think it was inch and a quarter or something of that nature, and that raises this table up above this piece and almost level with the top of the saw. And what I did was I screwed that down to the maple, and from there is a piano hinge attached from this piece of oak and this table, so it allows it to hinge up and down. So that's what I did to connect the table to the table saw. The table is actually made of 2 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood, and it's covered with Formica and trimmed out with 3/4 inch pine or whatever I had all the way around. I'm going to show you the leg on this is what I got basically from Laney's site. He got this from Fine Woodworking back in, geez, I can't remember what year it was, but what you do is there's some barrel bolts underneath here that unhinge a sliding dovetail leg. There's a support back at the table, and when you lock it in, you can make this table level with your table saw. The only thing I did differently from Laney's video is I put a lag bolt at the bottom of the leg so I can micro adjust this. So if it's ever low or high, I can change it. But I wasn't able to find any plans for an Outfeed table specific to this saw, so I tinkered with it. It took me a while to think about it, but this is what I came up with. Another feature that I added to this table saw that I really like, and actually it was one of the parts I was teetering on whether I wanted the saw or not. The saw's dust collection is directly underneath the saw in the center. It's a 4-inch port. There's a tapered pan, and I didn't want to have to crawl underneath there and hook something up to it all the time. Plus, I don't have any 4-inch dust collection yet. I'm working off a shop vac and a dust deputy. So what I got was this flexible tubing, and it expands, it twists, goes back up underneath, however I want to move it. I got this at Woodcraft, and it's kind of rigid, but it snaps and flexes into place. It's super nice. I haven't found it anywhere else, but basically I had to take a clamp it to that to the underside of the table where the port comes down, and then I had to add this too to taper it down. And of course this is the same size as my hose, so I needed a coupler, and coupler falls off every once in a while. I may run a screw in there, but this is super nice. And with this being flexible, it's even nicer because now that I have the Outfeed table, it's a little tougher to get at. I can pull this out and let it hang, so it's easier to reach when I want to hook it up. This is, I mean, I consider this a must for this table saw if you don't have permanent 4-inch dust collection hooked up to it. The next thing I want to talk about is basically the only issue I've had with the saw. The fence, I actually like the fence, but when I was using it, it got out of square at one point. And so when I went to adjust it back in, what you have to do is loosen these 4 bolts, Allen head bolts, make your adjustment, and then tighten it back down. Problem is when I tighten it back down, you know, the whole motion of tightening the Allen bolt put it out of square again. It took me about a half hour, 45 minutes of messing around with it to get it back to square. I wish there was a better way to adjust this fence and keep it square. So you got to check it from time to time, but as far as locking down, once it's square, it locks down, and it's a nice fence. I like it, but that should be a little better. Last thing I want to show you is the crosscut sled that I made for the table saw. There's some really good plans out there for him, and it's a fun project to make, and it's extremely useful for cutting crosscuts on your table saw. This is another very important reason why I have the Outfeed table. I have a very large sled, and you know, I have a handle back here to make sure that the saw blade doesn't go through your hand by mistake, because some people actually forget where they're at. So, and I put a stop on the side, and the stop is screwed to the table, so it can only go so far, then the whole unit stops. Problem is when it's so big like this, 2/3 of it are hanging over the table, and there's still 1/3 of it on the table. And I found before I made the Outfeed table, the sled wanted to tip. So I mean, I had to consciously make sure I was holding this down. and you know, you just don't want to be thinking about anything other than keeping your hand away from the blade and making sure that your stock is secured. So that was one of the huge reasons why I made the Outfeed table. After nearly a year of having this table saw and cutting a lot of wood on it, I have to say I'm very, very happy with it. It was a good choice. One other thing, if you do put an Outfeed table on it, be very conscious that there is an actual mobile base with this unit. You depress the wheels and you can move it around, which is great for a small shop. But this Outfeed table adds a lot of extra weight to it, and it's right at the limit of what those what the mobile base will take, because it'll actually want to just set itself back down. And found that out right away. No big deal. There's ways around it. But like I said, it's a super, super nice table saw. I like it. I just wish there was just a little bit of a difference how they square the fence up. But so if you're looking at a table saw and you don't know, and this is in your price range, I like this thing. So hopefully this helps somebody out in their decision making. I'm John from WorkshopAddict.com. Talk to you later.